Throughout the course of human history, anxiety and depression have been persistent companions of our existence. Yet in our modern era, we face a peculiar risk that previous generations did not: the possibility of waking up one day to the sobering realization that we've lost half our lives to these conditions. Our contemporary approach to mental health often centers around psychiatric medications, which have become commonplace in treating anxiety and depression. However, there's a troubling reality we must confront. These pharmaceutical interventions rarely cure people. Instead, they frequently serve as mere crutches, temporarily supporting individuals through ongoing psychological conflicts without addressing their root causes. The good news is that alternatives exist. Today, we'll explore a different path to addressing anxiety and depression by turning to the profound wisdom of Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychiatrists of the 20th century. His insights offer us a more holistic understanding of our psychological struggles and provide practical guidance for navigating them. Contemporary medicine commonly attributes anxiety disorders to changes in brain chemistry. Many doctors remain steadfast in this belief, often to the detriment of their patients. This perspective has contributed to an alarming trend. A growing number of individuals have been convinced that their psychological distress stems solely from physical defects in their brain. This reductionist view can leave patients feeling helpless, as if they are at the mercy of their neurochemistry. Jung proposed a radically different understanding. He believed that most cases of anxiety and depression are not rooted in a defective brain, but rather in a flawed way of life. This distinction is crucial. While brain chemistry certainly plays a role in our psychological well-being, Jung recognized that our mental health is deeply connected to how we live, the meaning we find, and our approach to life's challenges. Because of this perspective, Jung's initial approach was not to prescribe medication, but to offer something potentially more powerful: a dose of psychological understanding. This understanding involves recognizing what to expect from life and acknowledging the necessary changes we might need to make in our own attitudes and behaviors. One of the most profound insights Jung shared with his patients was the recognition that many people hold an unrealistic belief about the nature of life itself. There's a pervasive fantasy that life should be easy, that suffering should be minimized, and that challenges should be avoided whenever possible. Jung was refreshingly frank with his patients, conveying a fundamental truth that many of us resist: life is inherently challenging. Comfort and peace are not our natural states. It's improbable, perhaps even impossible, that any therapy or treatment can eliminate all difficulties from our lives. This realization may initially seem disheartening, but Jung saw it as liberating. When we understand that challenges are not just inevitable but essential for our well-being, we can stop fighting against the natural current of life. Acknowledging that valuable rewards rarely come effortlessly grounds us in reality. This realization serves as a catalyst for personal growth, because when we accept life's inherent toughness, we recognize the need to develop a resilient character to lead a fulfilling existence. On the contrary, if we remain ensnared in the illusion that life should be effortless, we'll lack the motivation to strengthen our character. We might perpetually wait for circumstances to improve, rather than developing the inner resources to navigate life's difficulties. Jung likened life to a battlefield. It always has been, and always will be. Without challenges, existence itself would cease to have meaning or purpose. Another crucial element of Jung's approach was his emphasis on the present moment. He had a vital message for his patients. Our issues are happening now, in the present, and merely delving into our past won't always fix them. Many people operate under the assumption that to move forward in life, they must first uncover why they're the way they are, excavating childhood traumas and past experiences as a prerequisite for growth. Jung saw this as what he called an evasion tactic, a clever way to dodge the real work at hand. He believed that human beings have a natural tendency to avoid looking within themselves for the causes of their discomfort. It's easier to push those issues far away, both in time and space. Confronting them and making positive change often seems risky and unpleasant. Yet Jung argued that the first step in any comprehensive psychological method is to face what he called our shadow. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, represents the part of ourselves that we prefer to hide, the traits we're ashamed of, the darker side of our personality that we'd rather keep concealed. Jung was certain that everyone possesses a shadow, and the more we attempt to bury it, the stronger and darker it becomes. This is a profound paradox of human psychology. What we resist tends to persist, often growing more powerful in the process. Confronting our shadow is crucial for personal growth. By acknowledging our flaws and the aspects of ourselves that we find uncomfortable or unacceptable, we gain a measure of control over them. As Jung eloquently put it, anything conscious can be corrected, but anything that escapes the unconscious is beyond the reach of correction. When we bring our shadow elements into conscious awareness, we can begin to integrate them in healthier ways, rather than allowing them to influence us from the shadows of our unconscious. It's important to understand that the shadow holds not only flaws but also qualities that can enrich our lives. Often, the traits we most forcefully reject in ourselves are precisely those that could bring balance and wholeness to our character. We frequently see elements of our shadow in those around us because we project our suppressed traits onto them. Recognizing what bothers us in others can reveal our own hidden side, a window into aspects of ourselves that we've disowned or denied. We can also uncover our shadow by reflecting on our motives, especially for actions that make us feel ashamed. Being honest with ourselves is key to this process, and it requires courage to look unflinchingly at aspects of ourselves that may be uncomfortable to acknowledge. Some people, for instance, tend to suppress their ability to express anger or defend themselves, viewing these capacities as negative or dangerous. Yet these same capacities, when understood and integrated consciously, can become valuable sources of strength and self-protection. Another advantage of acknowledging and understanding these suppressed aspects is that it grants us access to character traits that can enhance our lives. As Jung emphasized, the shadow isn't all bad. It contains qualities that could enrich human existence if properly recognized and integrated. However, we tend to become aware of our shadows by observing the weaknesses, flaws, and insecurities in those close to us. This occurs not just because we repress similar traits within ourselves, but also because we project our own shadow elements onto others. By noticing which characteristics in our friends and family bother us most intensely, we can catch a glimpse of our own shadow. This is why our strongest emotional reactions to others often tell us more about ourselves than about them. Another way to bring the shadow into our awareness is by reflecting on the motives behind our actions, especially those we feel ashamed of, and being open to self-critique when necessary. As Jung pointed out, often the only thing preventing us from seeing our shadow is our ability to be honest with ourselves. Alongside increased awareness of the shadow, another crucial aspect of Jung's therapeutic approach was helping his patients find meaning in their lives. Jung believed that when someone is deeply depressed or overwhelmed by anxiety, finding a significant role in life's drama is vital to their recovery and ongoing well-being. To illustrate this, consider an encounter Jung had with the chief of a Pueblo tribe in the early 20th century. The chief explained their tribe's traditions, emphasizing their duty to help the sun rise above the horizon each day. He declared that this was not just for their benefit but for America and the entire world. Jung recognized that this might sound strange to modern ears, but he pointed out something remarkable. Members of this tribe didn't suffer from the neuroses, anxiety disorders, or depression that plagued many in the modern world. They didn't rely on pills or succumb to addictions. Instead, their lives were imbued with meaning and purpose. Jung described them as having a natural and complete dignity. In contrast, Jung recounted meeting a Western woman who was constantly on the move, seeking but never truly finding what she was looking for. "I was amazed when I gazed into her eyes," Jung recalled. They held the look of someone desperately searching for meaning, like a cornered animal. She was possessed by this relentless quest, and I wondered why. It became clear to Jung that her life was painfully mundane, devoid of purpose. He reflected that if she were to vanish today, it would leave no mark, for she felt like nothing. This compulsive search for meaning infects many in the Western world. Some hop from one fate to another, others chase romantic partners, and some are obsessed with money, prestige, or recognition. But beneath these varied pursuits lies a common motivation: escaping the emptiness of their existence. They're trying to fill a void that can't be filled with possessions or experiences. Jung tells us that this void can only be filled by knowing that we're living a meaningful life. Imagine if the woman he described could say, "I am a daughter of the moon, and every night I help the moon, my mother, rise above the horizon." Her life would transform, filled with meaning not just for herself but for all of humanity. This sense of purpose brings inner peace. When people feel like actors in the divine drama of life, that's the only thing that truly gives meaning to their existence. Everything else, career, material success, even raising children, pales in comparison if it's not connected to a larger sense of purpose. It all boils down to this: does your life have meaning? Jung isn't suggesting we all adopt Pueblo mythology. Instead, he's highlighting the suffering that stems from a lack of meaning in many modern lives. For those seeking to break free from anxiety or depression, the task is to discover this meaning. We must find a way to justify our existence, whether through religious belief, contributing to values like justice or community, or through creative acts. It's up to each of us to uncover how we can play a meaningful role in life's grand drama. Those who succeed in finding meaning will define their own future, establishing a foundation for psychological well-being that medication alone cannot provide. But for those who fail in this quest, years or even decades of senseless suffering and endless seeking may await them. As Jung said, "I only care about the fulfillment of what is in each individual." That is the true problem. Now, the implications of Jung's approach are profound. It suggests that our psychological struggles might not be merely chemical imbalances to be corrected with medication, but existential challenges to be engaged with consciously. It invites us to consider that anxiety and depression might sometimes be signals pointing us toward necessary psychological development, rather than simply disorders to be eliminated. This doesn't mean that medication has no place in treating mental health conditions. For many, psychiatric medications provide crucial support during difficult periods. But Jung's wisdom reminds us that pills alone rarely address the deeper issues at play. True healing often involves the courageous work of facing our shadow, accepting life's inherent challenges, and finding meaning that transcends our individual concerns. In a world that often seeks quick fixes and easy solutions, Jung's approach asks something more demanding of us: to engage with the full complexity of our humanity, to look unflinchingly at both our light and shadow, and to seek meaning even in our struggles. This is not an easy path, but it holds the promise of a more authentic and fulfilling existence. So let's work towards helping our own metaphorical moon rise above the horizon. Let's face our shadows with courage and compassion. Let's embrace life's challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to happiness. And above all, let's seek meaning that connects us to something larger than ourselves. In doing so, we might discover that the path through anxiety and depression leads not just to relief from suffering, but to a deeper, richer experience of being human.